And this is Bloomberg News. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lori Rothman. As the BP saga continues on the Gulf and in Washington, one oil industry veteran of more than 35 years says BP still holding back the facts of this spill from the American public. Matthew Simmons is the founder and chairman of the Ocean Energy Institute, a research firm focused on creating renewable energy sources from all aspects of our ocean. He's also best known as the founder and former chairman of Simmons & Company International. Matt joins us on the telephone from Rockport, Maine. Welcome to you. Actually, we see you via Skype, it looks like. Great to see your face, Matt. Thanks for joining us again. Now, we spoke about 2 weeks ago, and your opinion at that time was that the military needs to take over capping efforts and that the best viable option should perhaps be a nuclear weapon. Do you still feel that way? Is this your belief to handle the situation and move beyond it?
I think basically we now know, it hasn't gotten out, but we now know a whole lot of better information from the scientists who are totally disputing what BP's story has been. And the best reports all have come from the Thomas Jefferson, which is America's largest research vessel, which got directed on June 6th to stop an ocean floor mapping program, send in from Woods Hole all the finest detection equipment we have, and get to where this enormous fire was coming that was miles away from the riser deal. And what the Thomas Jefferson found in a week was the most specific information we know, that basically the 1,100 meters below the surface of the Gulf of Mexico is a 300 to 400 meter lake of very heavy oil that is spread so fast that it's covering potentially 40% of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, I believe when I was on your program 2 weeks ago, I said that it covered the extent of Maryland and Delaware. And at the rate of the speed of the flow, they're actually now predicting that it's 120,000 barrels a day. But more importantly, they're almost certain, because of the lack of being able to detect where the wellbore was, because they could get within 3 miles of it, there's too much fire, there's no metal there, so the casing's gone. So with no casing, it's an open hole, and the only way we'll ever put it out is detonating something that will fuse the rock right above the oil column into glass, and the only way that anyone's ever done that is the 4 times the Soviets did that in the 70s with a very small bore nuclear device. So I think that's now our only option. And what do you think the administration would say to that option? Has anyone listened to you? Have you been able to put that suggestion forward? I mean, they seem to be, the administration is polling so many experts from so many different areas of science right now. Well, I had yesterday in Maine, Senator Susan Collins and the Maine delegation brought Secretary of Energy Stephen Chu, who I'd never met before, up to see the Advanced Composites Deepwater Energy Center. And several who I talked to had not heard this latest report because it just came in late Sunday and they were all gathering together. But I think basically I'd be very surprised if the administration doesn't know this now and is not preparing this response.
Why aren't you confident about the relief well drilling?
Because first of all, it's in the wrong place. And without any casing, it won't work.
Now, relief wells, though, they've been drilled successfully in numerous other situations in oil spills. Why? What's the problem with this particular situation?
They all had casing in the hole. Without casing, the mud just comes spewing back up. So that was always the belief. With the casing must have been there. My belief from day one, ironically, just watching unbelievable flames coming out of the water, and then to have BP senior people call it a rig fire, I thought was the biggest farce I'd ever heard. There are about 700 gallons of diesel on board a rig. And that thing was burning with such intensity, and it wasn't the rig burning, it was the water burning. So that's when it seemed to me pretty clear that this had to be one of the biggest blowouts we've ever had. And even in smaller blowouts in the past, that were all been onshore, one of the first things that happens, it usually kicks the blowout preventer off the wellbore, and then out of the ground comes the casing, even with a proper cement job, and it goes through the top of the derrick. And most of the deaths that have happened in blowouts is the casing falling on people. Here we know we had a very weak cement job. So the idea that the casing could have still been there, it seemed to me intuitively, was really low. Now I think the scientists have said it's even lower.
So
the only way we either are content with saying we'll just put 120,000 barrels a day in the Gulf for the next 25 or 30 years, or we have to detonate it.
All right, so then you are saying that in this situation, the drilling of not one but two relief wells is not going to work for the BP, the Deepwater Horizon explosion ensuing oil leak.
And you know, it's too bad that we didn't know, and I really sympathize with our government. I think BP had such a reputation of being the best experts in deep water. Well, it turns out that reputation wasn't warranted. We now know. We had a young guy that never even been on a deep water rig before who was telling the great people from Transocean who knew what they were doing to shut up. So that guy is in as hot a water as you can imagine, as is Tony Hayward. And I think the government, we will find, is going to take all their cash.